Right now on the National Weather Desk, Texas is rocked by another round of severe storms. Many had to be rescued from their flooded cars.
If he falls in this water, who knows where that water's going to take him.
All that rain has a bright side. It's starting to refill drought-stricken waterways.
The rain really woke everything up.
But too much rain in Alabama has farmers there very worried.
Do not ever recall a May as wet as this one.
A seal pup abandoned by his mother is rescued on the Washington coast.
It really becomes our responsibility as the people that are impacting them to give them that second chance to be wild.
We'll take a closer look at why dust from the Sahara Desert makes its way to the United States, and it's an epic wedding photo for a couple's magical day.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm Angela Brown. Severe storms pounded Texas again last night with heavy rain and damaging hail. This is San Antonio, where some streets look more like raging rivers. Many drivers who chose to drive through the water found themselves stuck and needing to be rescued. Phil Sterling has more on several life-saving rescues around town.
The fast water was flowing over Commerce Street, what's usually a dry creek bed, looking more like a river.
This is a very life-threatening situation. If he falls in this water, who knows where that water's going to take him.
Crews were dispatched here at around 8 a.m. They used a ladder to make it to the person trapped inside. They maneuvered the rescue bucket right up against the window. Firefighters led the driver onto the ladder.
So they're getting him out of the car right now. Here he goes. He's in the ladder right now. He's out safe. Everyone's safe in the ladder. That's a SAFD rescue.
But this wasn't the only incident.
This has transpired into a life-threatening situation. I would assume. Well, we're going to have a water rescue done on here.
Also, traffic along Highway 281 was brought to a standstill when several cars stalled out when water covered the highway.
I'm not sure how many occupants are in these vehicles. Potentially up to 4. One thing we do have this man in the red, sitting in his car patiently.
Drivers wading through water, leaving their cars behind. All of this followed several water rescues on Tuesday morning, with cars getting stuck along I-35 near Seguin Road.
This water is powerful, those currents are strong, and they will sweep you off your feet and drag you down.
About 80 miles away in Austin, the storm dumped up to 2 inches of rain in just 15 minutes. Austin fire crews rushed to this spot where a driver tried to pass through the flooded road and got stuck. Around the same time, strong winds took down a power line nearby, cutting electricity to hundreds of homes. Central Texas residents say this storm caught them by surprise.
I thought a hurricane was blowing through. It was unreal. I've seen some bad storms before, but this one was pretty amazing. The shelf cloud, I could see it coming in, and then boy, when it hit, it was pretty crazy.
The strong winds even ripped the flag off a pole and wrapped it around a power line. In central Austin, the winds damaged a fuel canopy at a market, and at the Texas Capitol, a window was blown out in the rotunda. That caused minor flooding and forced officials to close it off to visitors. Portions of Texas are once again under threat of severe weather, but the region with the greatest risk is a bit further north, including Lubbock and Waco. The southeast coast could also see severe storms from South Carolina to Jacksonville, Florida. This weather is welcomed in central Texas, where there is an extreme and exceptional drought. The latest round of storms has a popular spring and water hole simmering with water again. Vinny Martirano has more on what the recent rainfall means.
The latest storms across Hays County are bringing life back into one of the county's most popular watering holes, Jacob's Well.
There was just bone-dry creek bed about a week ago. It just was starting to look a little crusty.
The United States Geological Survey says Tuesday's 2 inches of rain helped put Jacob's Well at its highest water level since February. The gauge alongside it shows the water level is currently at 1.2 inches. Before this week's rain, Catherine Sturdivant with Hays County Parks says it was at 0.
The rain really woke everything up. And again, while it's going to look like this for about a week, it's tough to predict what it'll look like in the future.
Back in June of 2022, Hays County Parks shut down swimming in Jacob's Well due to low water levels. They haven't reopened since. After the recent rain, Sturdivant says people are calling to see if they can get back in the water.
We're really pumped to see the water. But we're being a little hesitant, a little cautious. We really want to see Jacob's Well come all the way back to normal.
The National Hurricane Center is now tracking the first tropical depression of the season. It took shape yesterday in the Pacific off the coast of Mexico. It is expected to strengthen into Tropical Storm Elvin in the next day or two. The storm could impact Baja California over the weekend. This is a great time to check out our special look at the hurricane season. Superstorms is now streaming on YouTube. We look at the factors impacting this year's season, look back at Helene, Milton, and Katrina 20 years later, and we have a high-tech visualization of what major coastal cities could look like when flooded. Check it out on our YouTube channel or search Superstorms 2025. Rain is typically good news for farmers, but when there is too much, it floods fields and delays planting. As Gracie Johnson shows us, Alabama farmers say the relentless rain is threatening their crops.
Persistent May rain has turned Alabama farmland into a soggy mess. In Blount County, Tim Whitley says planting should have been done by May 1st, but the first dry enough window didn't come until May 5th. And since then, the rain hasn't let up.
Do not ever recall a May as wet as this one and not being able to get into the field to work.
Some of the crop isn't even out of the ground yet, and what has emerged is already weeks behind schedule, with a ticking clock toward harvest season in October.
It's going to hurt yields simply because the planting dates are not where they really need to be. The later you plant the cotton, the lower yield potential you have in general.
And it's not just cotton. This is what a tomato farm in St. Clair County looks like. Severe flooding. And there's still more rain in the forecast. Now, both cotton and tomato growers face a race against time, fighting weather they can't control and praying for clearer skies.
A new report predicts no signs of relief when it comes to global warming over the next 5 years. The annual report from the World Meteorological Organization is predicting global temperatures will reach record or near record levels between now and 2029. It also found a 7% chance that average temperatures will exceed an international threshold set 10 years ago in the Paris Climate Agreement. Video captures the moment a huge mass of rock and ice from a glacier roared over a Swiss mountainside. Most of the village was coated in mud. Thankfully, authorities evacuated it earlier this month as a precaution, but a 64-year-old man is still missing. Scientists say global warming is melting the glaciers. A starving harbor seal pup found alone along Washington's coast is now being nursed back to health. As Joel Marino explains, the pup was abandoned by its mother, but will be returned to the wild.
This seal pup was found severely underweight and with no mother to care for her. She was spotted on a stretch of beach in Tokeland, and precautions were taken before she was approached.
They monitored her to make sure that mom wasn't coming back.
She's about 2 weeks old and has been recovering at the Sea Life Response, Rehabilitation, and Research Facility in Des Moines, where she is fed 4 to 5 meals a day. Pups are sometimes abandoned when these marine mammals haul out along a beach to rest, but people or pets get too close and frighten the mothers away.
They don't want to be anywhere near people. We're a threat to them, so the adults will, rather than risk their lives, they will abandon that pup.
SR3 staff keep their own contact to a minimum because once this seal is healthy enough, she'll be returned to the wild. They don't want her to think it will be okay to approach humans in the future.
She'll learn how to eat fish on her own, how to hunt the fish. We'll set up some different challenges for her. It really becomes our responsibility as the people that are impacting them to give them that second chance to be wild.
Take a look at this. A wedding photographer in eastern New Mexico captured the photo of a lifetime. A tornado behind two newlyweds. The high school sweethearts tied the knot last Sunday as severe weather approached the area. Photographer Chesnia Clemens says she got a weather alert on the phone, but instead of taking shelter, she looked to the horizon and then called the couple over for some more pictures. That tornado was 17 miles from where the couple was standing. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, we'll crunch the numbers on tornado season and see where we stand compared to past years, and why dust from Africa's Sahara Desert always makes its way to the U.S.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
When severe weather strikes, having enough time to get to a safe place can be the difference between life and death. A county in Oklahoma is now using an app to provide severe weather warnings, especially in areas without tornado sirens. Lauren Henry looks at the pros and cons of the warning system.
A familiar sound for many Oklahomans, alerts when severe weather is near. But for some areas, there are no tornado sirens. As Adrienne O'Hanlon with Pittsburgh County Emergency Management tells us, they have alternative ways to warn the community through an app.
It's not meant to replace anything that we have. It's meant to supplement, because the biggest thing is to make sure that you have multiple ways to be notified when there's a storm coming.
It's called the Genesis app. Residents can input their information and location to receive alerts to their phones. But the app has been met with mixed responses, leaving some worried about those in areas with no cell reception or those without a cell phone in general.
We have heard from some people that, you know, my grandma doesn't have a phone or the internet, and we understand that that is a reality that some of us may face. But this is just another way to try to reach people. It's not to replace anything.
As severe weather season continues, O'Hanlon stresses that residents of Pittsburgh County remain weather aware however they can.
We need to all make sure that we have a plan. Make sure you're watching your news outlets, TV, radio, newspaper. All of them are doing their best to keep us informed as well.
Oklahoma is one of the many places that's had a very active severe weather season. Other places, not so much. Meteorologist Garrett Hyde looks at the numbers and found his home state of Iowa is unusually quiet this year.
Taking a peek at the severe thunderstorm warnings itself across the country here and here in Iowa, the country as a whole is nearly about 1.5 times ahead of the 40-year to date average that we typically expect, coming in at just a little over 9,000 severe thunderstorm warnings. While here in Iowa, we are pretty close to what we typically expect. But when we compare that to last year's numbers, where things were a lot more busy, it's almost a total reversal, where the year as a whole for the nation was a little bit behind, and here in Iowa, we were well ahead at this time last year. But the tornado warning numbers themselves are really what makes quite the difference. Last year, we set a record with 125 confirmed tornadoes here in the state of Iowa, with nearly 150 warnings across the state. Fortunately, this year has been significantly quieter here, and we usually see only at around about 33 tornado warnings issued across the state, according to the last 40 years worth of data here as for the year to date. But so far this year, we've actually only had 18 warnings issued. And of those 18 tornado warnings, we've actually only had one tornado touchdown so far, which happened just outside of the Quad Cities back in mid-March. But looking forward, only time will tell how the rest of the season closes out. But one can say with pretty high confidence that this year likely will not be anywhere from what we saw this last year in 2024.
This is the time of year when air blows dust from Africa's Sahara Desert towards the southeastern United States. Florida meteorologist Jennifer Collins explains why this happens during the summer.
As we enter hurricane season and move through our summer months, you'll often hear about the Saharan air layer, or African dust as it's commonly referred to. This is essentially plumes of dust that move off the coast of Africa due to strong winds and enter the Atlantic basin. It's known to suppress tropical activity by drying out the surrounding air and producing a sinking motion, which prevents storms from forming. Now, we have satellites that are able to see plumes of dust moving across the Atlantic, and sometimes it can travel thousands of miles into the Caribbean and even the southeastern United States, where we often see this as hazy conditions here in our area. This can help to limit our rainfall chances too by warming up the surrounding air and stabilizing the air too. So we often will see lower rain chances associated with this and essentially get hazy, hot, and humid conditions. It can also produce very vibrant sunrises and sunsets. Because of the angle that the sun is coming in during sunrises and sunsets, we often see it scatter off of the dust particles, and we see this as the longer wavelength, so more of the orange reddish hues during sunrises and sunsets, and this is the best time to see African dust when it does move into our area.
It's going to be a very hot weekend in California, with temperatures in some places hitting triple digits. Other places may feel just as hot, even though the mercury isn't as high. As Charlotte Carl explains, it's all about the heat index.
I'm meteorologist Charlotte Carl. It is unfortunately getting to that time of year where heat index is a major factor in our forecast. So let's break down what exactly we are talking about when we talk about your heat stress or your heat index values, also known as your heat indices. So when we in West Palm Beach see an afternoon high temperature forecasted around 92 and a dew point sticking around 75, based on some math, we do get that your heat index value, or what your ambient air temperature feels like, are going to be in the lower triple digits. It's around 103. Now up in Stewart, same thing. We see a slightly lower dew point, a slightly higher temperature, but that heat index actually comes down by about a degree. So we're referencing your heat index values, also known as your apparent temperature. It's what it feels like to the human body when you factor in both the temperature outside and the humidity. So it is relative to the dew point because our body's mechanism to cool ourselves down involves sweat evaporating off the skin. So when it can't evaporate, your body naturally heats up a little bit more, leading to a higher feels like temperature. There is a direct relationship. If the air temperature and the humidity increase, we will also see that heat index value increase as well.
Planting season has been underway for months in many parts of the country, but in northern Wisconsin, many people are now just getting started. Eric Peterson caught up with some of them near Green Bay.
For many gardeners, Memorial Day weekend means it's time to plant. Janice Bunny Matthews is here for the first time this season.
I got my Roma tomatoes. I have my, what are them? Mountain Spring tomatoes. And I have my green peppers, my red peppers, my yellow peppers, and just that right now. I'm just starting.
A couple of greenhouses over, Dawn Williamson says she's filling her list for flowers.
Well, it was Mother's Day. I came in and I bought all of the vegetables. So now I got that done. Now it's time for the fun stuff.
We specialize in hanging baskets. We grow about 15,000 hanging baskets. Annuals, perennials, vegetables, herbs, shrubs, trees.
Grant Weary owns Weary's Blossom Creek in Swamico. He says changing weather conditions impact any growing season, and these baskets require a lot of care.
If you get a sun basket, it's going to need almost a gallon of water every day, fertilizer once a week. As we get hotter, you might need to water it twice a day.
He says some vegetables may need less water.
It's just watch and see if they're getting dry or not. You can tell by some yellow leaves.
It's a routine Dawn Williamson says is not only productive, but therapeutic.
I'm outside all the time.
Yeah.
And it's a release. It's my time. I don't have to worry about the phones, anybody bothering me. I'm in my own element. I love it.
And time now for a short break, but first let's take flight over Florida's Normandy Beach.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
A look at the formidable and the fascinating. A supercell thunderstorm time-lapse near San Antonio Monday evening, and in central Ohio the same evening, a sighting of sundogs. These bright spots are situated about 22 degrees to the left or right of the sun. In this case, on both sides. They form when light refracts through ice crystals.
You've no doubt heard the saying, red sky in the morning, sailors take warning, red sky at night, sailors delight. Meteorologist Jeff Exline explains the science behind the weather folklore.
Storm systems typically move in from west to east. Our sun comes up in the east, so the sunrise is actually bouncing off of those clouds, which are coming in from the west. And early in the day, shorter wavelengths of light are scattered out. We see the longer wavelengths that produce red and orange early in the day and late in the day towards sunset. So at sunset, just the opposite happens, right? The storm system is moving away from us to the east. Our sunset is in the west. So we're seeing the sun reflect off of the back edge of that departing storm system.